We're live.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You too. Enjoy. It's an awesome event. Thank you for having me.
Hi, everybody. We're live.
I can't hear anybody. Why am I?
You might have to mute yours because,
Okay.
yeah, now
There
we
we
don't
go.
have feedback, so we'll have to do the mute, unmute dance.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
I can't hear.
you're good.
Hello.
All right, we're
Where
kind
are
of,
you?
yeah, we're kind of getting started here, letting everybody get over
Let me try going
into
out.
our room from the awesome opening keynote. Let's see, I am going to stream. Oh, I already was. See how we look? Bit of a delay. We've got people coming in. Hello. Welcome. Ah, Tiffany Whitehead's here. Good morning. There's going to be a weird delay here as we go.
I don't see a link.
All right. Well, welcome to the LMS track. I am super excited to be here with Melissa, who's giving me a give me a second sign, and Karrie Chajkowski and Shannon Bosley. And hopefully we've got a all-star lineup for you all with ideas and things that you can do and take back to your own libraries. And we're giving Melissa maybe a second to set up. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
Yes.
We're broadcasting live from a spot in our district. So Mrs. Chajkowski and I are together. Actually, I should just like,
Let's let it like.
turn my computer. And then we also have the fabulous Jenny Miller-Horn, who's going to be in a different track. And then our guidance counselors are here, and also we have elementary. we're all covered here in Fort Thomas, which is great. So let's see. Did Melissa? Oh, Melissa's not back on yet. Well, maybe just so that we don't waste too much time, we might start with, I don't know, Shannon, how are you feeling about starting, or do you guys want me to start? Since
I don't want to start now.
Sorry, what was that?
I'd prefer not to start.
Prefer not to? Okay.
No, I'm still in my pajamas because my husband and son are sleeping, so we don't need to see this right now.
Shannon is streaming from the beach.
So I'll be taking a few minutes in a minute to skip out and brush the hair and change the shirt.
It's what virtual is all about, you all.
And that's why my camera's not on right now.
All right. Well, I am, oh, James is asking, what fancy space is that? This is our launch space. It's our district's sort of like annex space. I don't know how else to describe it. It's where we do professional studies, and they're going to have some coursework here next year, which is pretty cool. It's a really huge collaborative space. We built 14 bikes here this year, did some 3D printing. It's been pretty awesome. Oh, Melissa's back. Hey.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
I had to reboot. It's crazy. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to start, or do you want to? Do you need a few minutes? Because we can. Karrie can go, or I can go.
If one of you can go, so I can, because I had to reboot, I have to open up everything again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
All right. Well, I'm going to mute so that Karrie Chajkowski can.
I can find the
Go.
Okay.
Good morning. Okay, that's a little weird. It's like really. You're following me. Okay, let's try that. Good morning. Let's see. I'm Karrie Chajkowski. I'm the library media specialist at Woodville Elementary in Fort Thomas, and I'm going to really quickly. Good morning. I'm going to share my screen so you can see what else going on. So maybe. There we go. I was looking up the book we were looking at. Whoops. It's a morning. Sorry, haven't had enough coffee yet. So I'm working on incorporating literature with project-based learning, which is huge for me. We worked really hard on that this year at Fort Thomas and worked across the district on this. It was a really fun time. So can't wait to share it with you. Just a little bit about me. My kids call me Mrs. Kowski. Chajkowski's too much for them, apparently. So I'm always Mrs. Kowski and enjoy that. It's also my Twitter handle, so you're welcome to reach out to me anytime. I truly enjoy collaborating with people and chatting with people, so please do not hesitate to reach out. So a couple things. This is a slide from the awesome Heidi Neltner, who's sitting next to me. It's all about project-based learning is the best thing you can do to get started and be successful is to front load all your planning. Make sure you are coming up with what standards are you going to use? How are you going to assess this? What do you want the kids to do? And then create a calendar that you want the kids to follow. If you have a date at the end that you need to be finished by, then you really need to stick with that calendar. We're going to talk a little bit about managing the messy middle, which is really important because you're dealing with timelines and students and projects everywhere. And it's just, we're going to chat about how different ways that you can address that. And we're also going to talk about different ways that you can share beyond the classroom to make the learning very authentic for our kiddos. So our first one that we did, our first project-based learning we did was with our fourth graders. And side note, if you don't have a bathtub in your library, it's amazing. Yeah. But our first PBL was how can we make an award-nominated book come to life for a reader? And what we turned around and actually did was we took the Kentucky Bluegrass Awards for the kindergarten through second graders, and we had our fourth graders actually read them and come up with different ways to make those books come alive for a reader. So we followed the standards of focus for fourth grade that included reading literature 4.3, character setting, story, drama, in-depth, details, text, and also reading literature 4.7, making connections between the text of a story or drama and a visual or oral presentation. So we went for those two standards, and from there we started an entry event. An entry event within project-based learning is something to get the kids really jazzed, really excited about what's going on. So we actually held a book tasting. And so we set up the library with candelabras and table cloths and chargers and had the kids go around to each table and visit each book. They had about 3 or 4 minutes to view each book, and then they kind of did a menu review. So it was kind of a, how do you feel about this book? Would you like to read it again? Just basically a book review, but in a very short format. We did this for about 2 days, but I see my kids for an hour a week in total. So 2 days was very sufficient for this. The kids got around, we set up a timer, and they went to each book for about 5 to 6 minutes. And it was really just to get them a taste for each book. After that, we introduced our calendar. Our project calendar was very much so important because if you didn't have this, you're going to definitely get off track, spending more time on things than you realize. What I really did find was there are going to be moments that you are, what's the word I'm looking for? Extending your calendar in some places and fast forwarding through others. So making sure that you've really got a calendar that is flexible but still concrete, if that makes any sense. Throughout the entire project, teacher check-ins are a huge part of the project. You can't just drop it off and leave them and say, hey, here you go, guys. You can work on this today, work on your research today. It's really awesome for you to go group to group. You're going to be chatting group to group all the time. Something I'm huge about is video screencasting for feedback. I love being able to send them a video really quickly, a 2-minute video, because we actually have Schoology here in Fort Thomas. So one of the things that I like to do is with Schoology, I can get on and see what they're doing in PowerPoint, and then turn around and then leave them feedback. So I screencast the feedback with me talking to them. One thing I have found with that is the kids actually hear the inflection in your voice, and it kind of makes it a little bit easier for them to buy into. I saw a greater amount of buy-in with that group. So we had a project checklist, which kind of making sure the kids stayed on track. They had to choose a story. We chose our stories through this with a Google form after the kids finished all of their reading from the book tasting. They filled out a Google form on the books that they wanted to kind of focus on, the top 3. And then from there, we worked as a group to choose what group they wanted to go into. And that was a really good experience because the kids were doing things like, I know I can't work with Susie Q, and Susie says she only works better with so-and-so. So the kids actually took some responsibility for their groupings, but that was a really amazing thing to see. We did a lot of graphic organizers. What do you already know about this book? What do you need to know? We talked about works cited, project details, things like that. As we were going through, holding the kids accountable for what they had done was huge. This is also where video feedback comes into play. This is where Flipgrid for giving kids the ability to tell you what they've done that day. One of the other librarians in our district actually used this project chart where the kids every day had to go on and click the name of the person, the team, and then give them an emoji with whether it was good, bad, or ugly for the day. And the tasks they completed. You're going to have paperwork everywhere when you are doing progress monitoring for all the kids, checking to see where they are. And I would say it'd be a great idea for you to have a separate notebook just so you can keep your own notes. It really does help you in the long run. So one of my favorite parts of this, once we finished all of our research, we started talking about the tools that we could use. So we created this slide here and held it up, or not held it up, but put it on the smartboard for the kids to see and said, you know, these are some of the great tools that we have available to us. What else? And they created a Padlet of different ideas and resources that we had. We had everything from 3D printers to Ozobots, Bloxels. We had just green screen. You name it, they were coming up with it. So this was a quick way for them to start getting their brains going. I had a lot of kids who were just interested in a PowerPoint, and trying to get them to think beyond the PowerPoint was a challenge. So really working to get their brains going, like, you guys can really reach for the moon. How are we going to do it? So that was really awesome. Once we started brainstorming of different tools that we could use, we had a rapid prototyping session. And the rapid prototyping session is when you spend about 4 minutes, and classroomscreen.com is wonderful for the timer. We put up the timer and then played some soft music, and for 4 minutes they were not allowed to talk to anybody, look at anybody else. It was a chance for them to brainstorm as many ideas that they could that would be a way for them to share their project that they wanted to create with everybody else. So for example, I had one group who put in here, oh, we could do a 3D print of a boat to go with the It's a Small World ride from the book Pocket Full of Colors by Mary Blair. And that same group wanted to do a 3D model of It's a Small World out of cardboard. And then at the same time, they wanted to do a green screen broadcast of It's a Small World. So there's so many different ideas that the kids can come up with, and giving them a chance to brainstorm as much as they could was super important. So from there, the kids went in to share in feedback. And this is something I would encourage you to model with them before you get started. Because sometimes what I'm finding is that kids will not be very forthcoming with any suggestions or feedback for their friends. So what I would suggest would be to say to them, okay, well, this is how we're going to do it. I want you to have 2 things that they could work on and 2 things that you think would be really cool. Giving them some kind of expectation for the feedback is really helpful. And we did have to have the conversation about giving feedback with kindness is really important. And we also had the conversation on giving valuable feedback, not just saying it is nice, it is great, it is lovely. So going from there is really important. So you can see these kiddos over here giving valuable feedback. Good morning. Sorry. So from here, we went to gallery walks where all the groups went around and visited the other groups and looked at their project plans, looking at their ideas. That was a really valuable moment because it gave other groups ideas to grow on, and it also gave them a chance to give feedback to other people. So they went around and said, again, one thing they liked, one thing they could work on. That was my 2 big things that I wanted them to do. And again, we had to have the very long conversation. You can't just say, it looks pretty, but that was a big thing that they kept saying, I like your idea. Or the other thing we had to have a conversation about was on their gallery walk, a lot of them had their posters set up where other people could see their ideas, but they would say, oh, your handwriting could be neater. Well, we are not focusing on handwriting, we're focusing on the ideas. So shifting from the appearance to the ideas was a big paradigm shift for my guys. So giving the kids voice and choice throughout this entire process is incredibly important. The reason I say that is because sometimes you're going to find that you don't think their idea is going to work too well, or you don't think that their idea is exactly easy for them to accomplish, or they might not have the fundamental skills. Being somebody who doesn't limit what they're doing, just being a cheerleader is super important. So for example, here, this group at the top, my 3 gals, they decided to do a play of escargot. And little Kaylee there in the front in her little red stripy shirt, they decided to actually dress up like escargot, and they did a whole green screen activity of it. I had a group who took the Pig a Fox and Stinky Socks over there and just created an entire 3D model of a Pig a Fox and Stinky Socks. We had kids using cardboard and Bloxels to create video games, whatever they could to do this. I would recommend making sure you have cardboard saws. That's really important, especially if you're using any form of cardboard. It's going to save you a lot of fingers and cuts and things like that. So setting up a spot for the students to store their work is incredibly important. I have found that the chalk markers that you might find at restaurants that work on windows work really well on the top of bookshelves, and they wipe right off. So I would actually give each group their own bookshelf, and that was really helpful. Some of the other things across the district, kids use the Ozobots, kids use the cardboard. One of the groups even sewed their own puppets. So that was pretty awesome. One thing I did find is don't be afraid to ask for recyclables from the home, from cafeteria, from custodians, cardboard. Just put it out there that you need it, and come up with a central location within your library to keep it, or whatever space, if it's a big garbage bin, whatever. But having that easily accessible to the kids is super duper important. So the last thing I would like to share with you about would be on this KBA one is sharing with an authentic audience, letting the kids actually share with the other kids who are going to be experiencing the book. We actually realized later on this year with this Kentucky Bluegrass Awards PBL that we should have probably started the 4th grade part of it in August, September, October earlier this year, instead of starting it simultaneously with the K2 KBA Awards, because they weren't really able to share it with a new and exciting audience. Across the district in Johnson Elementary, they did a STEAM night and were able to share all of their awesome work. So getting the kids a chance to share with the community and people around them as well as their peers is really super important with this. All right. The other one that I did that I really, really enjoyed, and Heidi and I co-taught with this one, was The Wild Robot. And if you haven't had a chance to read The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, you are missing out. It's one of my favorite read-alouds now. I read it with the third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. We read a chapter or two every time they came to see us and truly enjoyed that first 10 minutes every day for the kiddos to kind of relax into the day, the first part of the year. But from there, we built on it with the third grade especially into, after reading the book, as fans of The Wild Robot, how can we develop appropriate adaptations to help Roz survive in a new and unfamiliar habitat? So we had our students gather around and choose a different, I took pictures of all the different habitats that Roz could be dropped into. So whether it was the ocean, the tundra, the grasslands, whatever it was. And I took pictures of all of them and cut them apart into puzzle pieces. And the students had to reach in and grab one. And that was actually how they found their groups for this. We addressed different standards throughout, including writing, conducting short research projects, writing informative text, reporting on a topic, but we also hit the NGSS standards with construct an argument that plants and animals have internal and external structures that function to support survival, growth, behavior, and reproduction. So the kiddos actually created a model to go with Roz's new habitat and the external and internal adaptations that would help her survive in that new environment. So that was pretty awesome to see what they came up with. After we read it, the kids went on a digital field trip using Nearpod to evaluate the book and what we believe to be Roz's environment from the book. We believed it was kind of similar to the Cascades National Park. So the kids went on an actual digital field trip using Nearpod. And from there, the kids drew a picture of the bin for their new habitat that we drop Roz in for the puzzle piece, and then created a puzzle, found their group, which I talked about a little bit before. But then we started discussing what the expectations were. If you are not familiar with the single point rubric from Jennifer Gonzalez, Cult of Pedagogy, I would definitely take some time to go check that out. I really enjoy the single point rubric because it gives your expectation. You can tell them exactly what you want from them, and they always seem to go above and beyond. So for example, the habitat research, students should be able to, or should have research from 3 different sources of information: a book, a database, and a website. And they should be able to answer their need to knows from the habitat. Also with the plant and animal research, they should be able to identify one plant and one animal, and the external and internal structures that help it survive. The robot should be able to demonstrate motion. It should have clear modification. And then we also had the kids create a habitat model to share what was going on in Roz's new habitat. So that was pretty awesome to see. We determined our need to knows and want to knows, which are really important when you're starting your project-based learning because it kind of drives the kids' research. And we also divided up the research of need to knows and want to knows and to the kids and created group roles. So we had a project manager, we had a public relations, we had a design specialist, we had a fact checker. All those kids had roles within the group that really helped them to become successful and make sure that they were holding each other accountable throughout this entire project. Also down at the bottom, you'll see there's a stop and conference. We had those periodically throughout the interactive notebook to help the kids realize that they needed to find an adult and chat with them about where they were, so we can just double check that they're on their straight and narrow. But I also would go through their Schoology and PowerPoints that way and screencast back to them some ideas. That way I wasn't wasting a ton of time just looking through their design notebooks during the class time, and I could actually focus on making sure they were on the track and using the most time efficiently. This was our interactive notebook of where they recorded all of their ideas and things that they found. We included the source name at the top where they found it, the author, whether it was a URL or a publisher. We wrote the facts down that would go with it. And something I was really big on, especially with my third graders on this, was read it, turn your iPad over, and then think about what you would say just to synthesize the research that they read. That way we're trying to avoid copyright as much as possible, especially with these little guys. It's a hard skill that we're just trying to get them in the habit early of, synthesizing their own research. So while checking in with each group each time was huge. I also liked for the group manager to drop me a 1-sentence note every time on Schoology about what they did that day or what they were going to do that day. The manager could also drop a Post-it on my door, however it works or would work best for you guys. We also have gallery walks, again, huge part of reflection and developing projects that meets our driving question. The kids would come up with their basic ideas and then walk around and comment on each other's, giving them different ideas. Each group did devise a plan to create and share their robot and their research, as well as the new adaptations for Roz. We had kids 3D printing. We had kids using Bloxels. Heidi had kids using Minecraft and what was the other? Keynote? Yeah. Bloxels and Keynote. So, I mean, you could ask her more about that if you wanted to chime in, because I don't know enough about Minecraft. I go to a training tomorrow. I'm really excited about that. But really, the kids got a chance to create their new habitats, and their ideas were just marvelous. For example, we had a group who had Roz in the grasslands, and they wanted her in a hamster ball type scenario where she could still get the solar power that she needed to charge, but stay safe from all the other animals. So, and she could roll wherever she needed to with her new nest, if you've read The Wild Robot. So, things that I learned throughout this whole endeavor is create an evening event to share, not just with your stakeholders like your other students, but also with the parents in the community. Be super organized and take notes on where your students or your groups are. And also bring in other adults at your gallery walk. I really feel like that is an important thing that I didn't realize at the beginning, just to kind of give some outside feedback from other adults that are important to those kids. If I had had their classroom teacher, just bringing that collaboration between the classroom teacher and myself, I think would have been a lot more powerful. Last thing I would say is make sure you assign a photographer, make that part of your social or your media relations job or your group leader job, because half of these photos I don't have. I don't have pictures of any of the final products for either of these from my school, because I was so entranced by what the kids were doing and saying and just super proud of them that I really didn't take any photos. So assigning a photographer is a really important part. So this is me. Again, if you need to copy this presentation somehow, or you want to reach out to me, please feel free. I'm more than happy to collaborate with you or chat with you or answer any questions you might have. All right.
There was a question.
Okay.
So M. Robinson, I'm thinking that might be Missy Robinson. She
Hi,
says,
Missy.
this is an amazing project. How do you keep up with the tech? Bloxels, 3D printing, green screen. Did kids already know how to use it?
No. Well, some yes and some no. I was lucky enough to have at the beginning of the year a chance to kind of have different modules going for things like the Bloxels and things like Dash and Dot. But right now, oh, sorry. But throughout, oh, sorry, I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. The kids did a lot of self-help. I would pull different videos for them to go see, or I'd stop by and do a quick tutorial with them as like I was breezing through their group for that day. A lot of the kiddos found their own way on some of those. Gave them a quick, like, here's some tutorials on the site, and they would kind of take off from there. So it was pretty awesome what they were able to accomplish. So Heidi, were there any other questions, or am I?
Nope, they're just saying great job.
Thanks.
Does anybody ask if anybody else, if they type
Anyone else, if you type in a question, I will be more than happy to answer. I would love to collaborate with you more on this if you're interested. Wrong one. There we go. Maybe. Nope. A little weird to pull up your own screen here.
James says photos are important for so many reasons, for reflection,
Absolutely.
advocacy, documentation, signage.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And part of my plan for next year is having my kiddos come back and share with the 4th grade kiddos what they did and their experience with it, so that they can get them pumped about it. I think there's nothing that's going to get them more pumped than other kids. So that's about it. So, all righty. Well, thank you all. I appreciate y'all so much. And I got to figure out how to not share my screen anymore. There it is. All righty. So thank you.
All right, so I'm back real quick just to introduce Melissa Gardner, who is Dr. Melissa. She's shaking her head at me. And she's going to talk about how she branded her library. And I am amazed, you all. You are going to love, love, love the ideas that she has to share for advocacy. So I'm going to mute so that she can take it over.
All right, let's see. All right, let's see. Can you guys see my screen? You got it? Okay. I apologize for not having the link to the agenda. It's been a rough week. But anyway, I will send the link out. I'll tweet it out, and I'll have it added to the screen as soon as I can. So this is my second year, or actually beginning my 3rd year at Campbell County Middle School. And before I came to the middle school 2 years ago, there was a librarian for both the middle and the high school for many years. And that librarian would divide their time between the 2 schools and usually spend 3 days at the high school and 2 at the middle school, or vice versa. There was a full-time clerk at each of the 2 schools, so the students would they could check out the books, staff could check out equipment, but there wasn't much consistency with the programming because it was so hard to maintain continuity in the program. So I spent my first year here getting acclimated to the school, getting to know the staff, and working on updating the policies and procedures for the library. And when I came in, all the scheduling for the library had been done on paper. And as you might expect, the library was mainly used by the language arts classes for book checkouts. So during the summer before my second year, I decided I wanted to create an identity for the library. I wanted to start by creating a logo that would easily identify the library and I could use for correspondence and advertising for the library programs. So the school mascot for both the middle and the high school is a camel. Not very exciting, but you know. Unfortunately, there's not one singular version of the camel that is the official Campbell County camel. The high school librarian had licensed the use of a camel that I believe is part of the Scholastic Book Fair one year and used that in her library, but I wanted something that was specific to my library. So I started out, my first attempts at creating a logo was done in Canva, which is a free graphic design program that has a multitude of templates that you can use. You can upload your own graphics or choose from free ones on the site. And with a paid subscription, you have many more options. But for what I use the site for, I didn't really need the paid subscription, plus I'm pretty cheap. One warning about using Canva, once I log into the site, I lose all sense of time and I spend way too much time playing with the layouts and colors and I don't get anything else done. But anyway, so I played with several layouts and color combinations, and these are some of the examples of the designs that I came up with, but they weren't exactly what I was looking for and I wasn't very happy with them yet. So I quickly found out that by going straight into Canva and not planning first, I was approaching it kind of backward. I was looking for layouts and changing them to suit me rather than planning what I really needed and wanted and then creating the layout. So I made my list of criteria for a logo. I wanted it to have the school colors, which are purple and gold. Purple is the primary color for the school. The gold is optional. Second, I wanted it to represent a library with either something relating to books or books and technology. Third, it had to identify the school by incorporating the name of the school, or preferably the school name and a camel. And then finally, because I was going to be using this to identify my library, all the images had to be labeled for reuse and able to be modified. I didn't want any issues with copyright. So my son, Sean, offered to help me with some ideas, and he was the first to come up with the idea of the camel walking through the sand dunes made with a book. And I really liked the idea, but we had trouble finding just the right images to put together. And if you notice, Sean's not a great speller. He spelled Campbell wrong, but that's easily remedied. So my cousin was a graphic design major in college, so I kind of recruited her to help me. I gave her the ideas that Sean had and asked if she could turn it into something a little more professional looking. So these are some of the early stages of the design process. She would create the design and send it to me, and I would comment on it and send it back. And the last design, except for the spelling, I think bad spelling must run in the family, was the one that we finally chose because it incorporated everything that we were looking for. So she cleaned up the image and sent it to me in several formats. She sent it in JPEG and PNG and all different kinds of things that I could use it for different things. So I could use it for different purposes. And even though the purple is not the official Campbell County purple, I think it looked better with the design that we were looking for. So the way that we use the design now, let's see, can you guys see the, there it goes, okay. So now that anything that comes out of my library has the logo as part of the header on all the social media accounts that we have. I created letterheads, so if I write letters of recommendation for kids or I send letters home, it's on there. I use it, incorporate it into my email signature for my school email account. I made business cards that I take with me when I go to conferences or to meetings. My clerk and I have embroidered shirts with the logo that we wear on Fridays or whenever we can. And if you notice, we took we borrowed ideas from other librarians, and we have our menu, our library services menu, and the logo is incorporated on that. In our library, there's a long hallway leading into the library that had just a blank white wall. And so I projected the image of the logo onto the wall with a projector and a laptop and traced it, and then went to Home Depot and got sample paints, which was just enough for each of the colors. And as I had downtime throughout the first semester last year, I painted the logo on the wall. And it was kind of nice that I did it during the day because it drew the kids' attention to it as I was like, "You're painting that? That's really cool." So another way that we use it is as part of our library statistics. I do statistics once a month and email them to the administrators, staff, and send them to parents through Schoology. And because I started keeping track of these statistics during my first year at the school, I'm able to do comparisons each year and show growth from last year to this year. And so I keep this is the same template. I use the same template every month. I just change the date. And so I have the previous month statistics. I just add in the new month. I run the necessary reports in Destiny and use my Google Calendar where the classes had signed up to do to show how many classes had visited. We have a Google form that we use to sign in when the kids come to the library and what their purpose is for their visit. So we keep those statistics. The kids like to, the teachers, the ELA teachers are very competitive. And so we keep track of the top circulations by the class and then the top titles that are checked out. And they're usually Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Kwame Alexander are usually the ones that are the top each month. So once I get this set up, this is in Google Slides. I just download it as I download it as a PDF to email out, and then I download it as a JPEG to do I tweet it out and put it on Facebook and things like that. So another way that we use it is on our library webpage. Every page of our library has our logo on there so that whenever kids use the webpage to get resources, they see the logo and it easily identifies it as being part of our library site. So we do a lot of advocating for our library on social media. And this is something that I've tried to do this past year. We have an Instagram account, a Twitter account, and a Facebook account. Currently, the followers are mostly staff, but I do have a lot of parents following on Facebook. I don't have as many people or family members following on Twitter yet. A lot of times those are just fellow librarians and staff members, but we're working on it. And we added in the Instagram hoping that we could get more students to follow along. And as we're doing our summer reading, I have been promoting that through that. For Facebook, I normally post using my personal iPad, so I don't have to be logged into the school's network because Facebook is blocked in our district, or I post those in the evenings. At first, I tried to at least post weekly updates. Now I try to do daily posts. So I looked at social media accounts from libraries all over and what kinds of posts they were doing. And from their inspiration, I came up with some daily posts. So for example, Monday, I post something from our makerspace and our STEAM and called that Maker Monday, hashtag Maker Monday. Tuesday, we highlight new titles that we have, and we call that New Title Tuesday. Wednesday, I do a vocabulary word that I get from the SAT or ACT vocabulary list, and that's our Word Wednesday. Thursday, we have a guest staff member who tells us about a book that they read when they were in middle school, and so we get them to tell us about the book, and then I do a book cover for it, and that's our Throwback Thursday. And then Friday is our Fun Fact Friday, so we do weird facts that day. So and at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with doing all these tweets every day, but with the use of Canva and TweetDeck, I can do them all. Like I can do them all ahead of time and then schedule the tweets to go out. So I want to show you. Let's see if you can see this. Okay, So this is Canva. These are some of the designs that I've made. And so, for example, this is one of our Fun Fact Fridays, which was that dogs sniff good smells with their left nostril. And so I basically use this template for all my Fun Fact Fridays. So I just go in and it's the same background. I change the picture. I always keep the Fun Fact Friday and CCMS reads. And then at the bottom, I put where I found the information so that the kids can go back and use that information. So if you look through some of my other posts, here's one that I did about running amok. That it's actually a actual mental condition, and I put my Bette Midler picture. So basically, all I'm doing is changing the pictures. So this is what our Throwback Thursday looks like. This was one of our assistant principals. This is Henson. Her two favorite books when she was growing up were Bridge to Terabithia and Wuthering Heights. And so I included a little bit about why she liked those books. And so I usually change, it's the same template, but I change the colors to match the book. So it looks nice. Here's a Maker Monday. We just tell about one of the items that we have in our maker space, and I try to get a picture of one of the kids using the technology if I can. The word Wednesday looks like this. It's just basically the word, and then the definition. I try to add some pictures now. This was one of the earlier ones. Some pictures and try to, make it a little bit more appealing. But it really helps it go faster that we have the same template for each one. So all I have to do is add the new picture. And with Canva, it's really easy to do the pictures and make this is what we do for our summer reading. We're working with Scholastic Read-a-Palooza. So each week I post how many minutes the kids have read. So last week they had read 6,883 minutes. So each week all I have to go in is change the number. So that way I'm not recreating the wheel. And you notice I got the logo on there. Not recreating the wheel each time. So when you go in and create a design, you tell it, what kind of social media. I usually just do the square one because it fits most of the designs, most of the different formats. And you can upload your pictures to Canva. You can use ones that are already located on there, so that it's easy to update. The second thing that really helps me is I utilize TweetDeck. And right now, I take care of, as far as Twitter goes, I have 3 social media accounts. I have my personal one. I have my CCMS library, and then I'm also the social media chair for KLA. So using TweetDeck allows me to keep track of each of the different postings, so that I'm not accidentally posting KLA stuff on my personal page or on the library page, so on and so forth. But the best thing that I like about TweetDeck is that you can schedule your posts, so that if I have time to do 3 or 4 of my Makerspace Monday posts, I can go ahead and schedule those so that for the next 3 Mondays, I can schedule those, and then they will post automatically. So that's really helpful to me. A lot of times when I post things for KLA, they ask me to repeat the post like once a week for the next month. So I can go ahead and schedule that all out at one time, and do the same thing. I know there are other programs, as Shannon mentions, you can do Hootsuite. I think there's several others that you can do those with. But it makes it a lot simpler. When you have time, you can do several of the posts in bulk. And one good thing about Instagram is from my school Instagram account, you can have it post to your Facebook and to your Twitter account from those. So that saves a lot of time as well. So anyway. So does anyone have any questions? Let me go back out to, let's see, where am I?
Hey, Melissa, there was a question in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see. TJ Metcalf asks, how do you differentiate the use of different social media sites? What, for example, goes... Hey, Melissa, there was a question in the chat. I have a delay on myself.
Oh, okay.
Different social media sites. What, for example... Sorry, that was a little awkward. He says, let me start that question over. How do you differentiate the use of different social media sites? What, for example, goes on the Twitter that might not go on the Facebook? I like that, the Twitter.
The Twitter.
Oh, you're muted, I think.
Am I muted? Oh, that's Shannon. Okay. Am I good now? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Can or no? Let's see. How about now? Can you hear me now? I can't hear you.
I can hear you, Melissa.
Chat. I can answer because for some reason your microphone went out.
Okay. Well, so basically anything that I do on one, I make sure that it's appropriate for all three. So that I don't have to differentiate too many between the three. Things that I am mainly the teachers, I may just do because they're my main audience on Twitter, and things that I may be focusing more on parents, I might just post to Facebook. But I try to do all three so that no matter which account that they are part of, that they have access to it. Did you get all that?
Does anybody else have any questions? If you drop them in the chat, I'll try not to mess it up. They're going to fire me.
Missy says she can hear me.
It was me. I had the wrong computer muted. Because I have two computers going again.
That was awesome. Right. So if you have any other questions, or if you want me to send you, you're welcome to use my templates if you want. I'll send them to you. But just email me. My email and contact information is on the promo slide, or when I finally get the presentation linked, it's all on there as well. So, but see any more questions? There we go. All right.
All right, so we're running a little bit ahead of schedule since we didn't have any other questions. So with that, I think we're ready to turn it on to Shannon Bosley, who is streaming from vacation, and we hope she was able to get a shower or whatever it was she had to do. There she is. I see your face. Okay, so I'll mute so that she can go.
All right. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yep, we
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure because I'm trying to use the earbuds so we won't get any background noise. So welcome everybody. My name is Shannon Bosley. I am the current library media specialist at Dixie Heights High School. I have been in the library since 1997, and with about 5 years off that I worked in a district position. So what I want to talk to you about today was using and promoting OER, open educational resources. So I am going to open my screen up all the way. If you'll give me a second, because I am a newbie at this. Slide that over and let's see. Where is my share screen? Shrink there. I think that's it. I was trying to practice by myself yesterday. It wasn't going very well. All right, can you see the screen now? Hopefully. All right. So using and promoting OER in your school and library. Go through a little bit. So first of all, what is OER? It is simply open educational resources. They've been around for a while. More and more districts are using them. More and more teachers are using them. It's kind of the advent of informational sharing with the internet is why it's gotten so popular. So a little bit more. In the 2017 National Education Tech Plan, the Department of Education defines openly licensed educational resources as teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under a license that permits their free use, reuse, modification, and sharing with others. So basically your Creative Commons license. So the digitally open license resources can include complete online courses, modular digital textbooks, as well as more granular resources such as videos, images, and assessment items. So, and you can go to the tech.ed.gov/open to find more information about that. But just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the different, so your openly licensed educational resources, free or minimal cost, it's that open license. An example of that is OER Commons, which we'll look at. And then you have free digital learning resources, such as the Smithsonian Learning Lab, Smithsonian Education, and then you have your traditional proprietary textbooks, which are limited. And we have to watch our use of those, as the school district in Houston Independent School District, recently found out they got a $9.2 million lawsuit against them for teachers copying study guides from a regional company there in Texas, and for years. And they got the lawsuit against them. So we kind of need to make sure we have our teachers aware of the copyright issues that still exist. So what are some of the benefits of using OER? Well, one, they're free and they're legal. So that's important. And in using free and legal items, you have considerable savings that you can have to yourself as teachers, because we all know we spend a lot of our own money, or to the districts and the schools themselves. You also have expanded access to learning. You have things that are available that you never would have had access to before. Just read an article last week, and it was talking about a student in Oklahoma who graduated from Harvard before he graduated and got his high school diploma. And that wouldn't have been able to have access to all of that possibilities unless we would have had the online resources we have now, and including courses and things online. Yes, he did pay for those, but just the expanded option that is possible. You also have the benefit of enhancement of regular course content. We all know I used to spend Saturdays when my first year of teaching to work at the Gaines Academy in Jefferson County just to get my materials ready and this and that. And now we can do that from home, and we can have 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, whether we're searching Pinterest for a lesson or Read, Write, Think or anything else. You also have scalability and customizable, so it can be fit to your classroom. I know my teachers at Dixie right now, all the content areas are working on picking the standards for their content areas as well as their individual classes. What are they going to hit the hardest? And then they're really trying to work and plan for those. And so they can customize to fit the needs of their individual classes. So what are some negatives? There's always negatives. Well, one, we all know tech issues can happen. And that can include accessibility of all your students. Some might have access, some may not. So you have to plan for those. So yeah, that is a negative. Quality. Just because it's out there and posted online does not mean it is worth being posted online. I think we all realize that. Kind of reminds you of your State Farm commercial, right? I saw it on the internet. Human relationships, you still need to have that human contact and interaction. In my graduate work, I know a lot of people do online classes and love them, and for feasibility or for accessibility, things like that. So that's a positive of online. I like my graduate classes being in person, and most of that is because of the human relationships and connections I've been able to make. Also, sustainability. There's no monetary incentives to continually update the resources. And when I'm going to look, I try to tell my students, when was this information list updated? If it's 2016, maybe, but if it's 2001, how accurate, how up to date is it? We don't know. And then there could be language or cultural barriers. Yes, Google Translate is awesome, but it doesn't solve everything. And then cultural barriers that you may have or not even consider. So this was a quote from Joyce Valenza in 2017. And if you're a library media specialist, you know probably who Joyce is. She's awesome. So it's about K-12 digital curation is about getting our users, students, teachers to the good stuff, okay? Pointing them in the right direction. And that's part of who we are as librarians. We are here to help our students as well as help our teachers. And I do that. I talk to my freshman orientation when they come in and they say, my job here is to help you and help your teachers. That's it. And that everything that I do can fall under one of those two categories. The Joyce Valenza also had this curator's taxonomy process that I wanted to share with you all. So, collecting, and so that's using the OER, your open educational resources, connecting those with the people that need them, curating those or for a specific purpose or class, and then, contributing your own as well. So if we go to curate, that is the ASL standard number 4. So make meaning for oneself or others by collecting, organizing, and sharing resources of personal relevance. And that's huge. And you can even go and look at the crosswalk for the future ready librarians as well. Curate is a big key of that. Big part of digital resources that they mention. If we look at that real quick, you can see we're down and inquire. If we scroll down to the curate, there we go. You can see the different National Library Standards here and the Future Ready. So, creates inclusive collections that acknowledge and celebrate diverse experiences, provides and advocates equitable access to collection tools, so on and so forth. You can find those. The same thing with the ISTE standards. We have all those as well. So again, big part of who we are as librarians is curation. So what are some open educational resources, right? So we have CK12. That's probably one that's been around the longest. They started out with free customizable textbooks. You can go and we'll check out this one real quick. So I can switch to the student version. I'm on the teacher version. So say, for instance, you teach science, and you can go and check out one of the 5th grade science book. So this could be, hey, we don't have money for textbooks. Our school or district has not bought textbooks in 6 years. Could I use this one? Absolutely, you could use this one. Or it may just be, you know what? I am really good at physical and earth science, but not so much in life science. Let me see what resources they have here. And I can go through and I can see what they have. You also could set up accounts and you can assign it to class. You can add it to your library. You can download it. All these different things. You can see that they have an app on the iOS and Google Play as well. Okay. And this is all free. There's something you can set up classes and things like that. Again, you can utilize all this, or you could just go and get your different subject areas and find it. I had a teacher a number of years ago that wanted algebra help for her son. And so I connected him with CK12 and they were able to go in and check out all of this. And if there's additional things that they needed to learn, they could do that. So CK12 is a fabulous one to use. Another one for free open source textbooks is OpenStax. If you're not familiar with that, I'm gonna hide that for just a second. And here's OpenStax. Let's come on, close some of those. Again, notice Rice University is one of the sponsors of that. So again, let's see, we can go to science again. Here's your information about science. We can go to AP if you're a high school. Maybe you don't have a lot of resources or you have a new person teaching. So you can go to these. So yeah, this is more for your high school and college, but there it is. OER Commons is probably one of the most popular ones and well-known ones. That was what was mentioned on the chart earlier. So again, you can search for keywords, you can search by subject, you can search by education level. So if you want to limit it to lower primary and say, we'll do plants, right? If I can spell. And then I can search. And then over on the left side, you can go and do the material type. So you have a lot of filtering so you don't get too overwhelmed. But just searching plants for elementary, lower primary, I have 203 resources. So different units, it could be videos, it could be something else. I'll curate it for you. And I also wanted to make sure you do have your standards that you can do. So we actually have our ASL standards. So if you're a school librarian and you have to submit lesson plans and you want to use your standards that we have not yet adopted yet, but are under review currently, you can go here and you can look at those, but you can also then search by subject area, education level, all those. So that's your OER Commons. That's one I would definitely bookmark and use for your lesson plan. Oops, sorry about that. All right, Cricky is another one that you can look at. I did screenshots of all of them just in case of technical difficulties. It would be in the slideshow that people could go back to because you just never know. None of your cookies. So again, your resources, you can search for different members, browse your lesson library. There's professional development. So ed tech, the education level, professional development, so on and so forth. Most of these places also have some type of webinars on a regular basis that will give you training if you're looking for more information. Amazon Inspire is somewhat new. It was released in beta form in 2016. And again, it's an open collaboration service for teachers. And so you can search by subjects here, you can search by grade levels, or you can search by, there's your science standards, your math, and your ELA. I would assume the social studies standards would be up there shortly as well, since those are fairly new. Let's go to social studies, just to kind of give you an idea. And we'll choose 3rd through 5th grade. And we can go to President's Day, QR scavenger hunt. So those would be fun to do. Or an ed puzzle or presidential flashcards. So you can go through there and search for those. Again, free. Okay. So going through there, and Khan Academy. Most of you know Khan Academy. Several years ago, my kids hated it, but I signed up as, and I put them in a class, and they had to do so many minutes of Khan Academy on summer break before we would go have the fun time or the pool time or whatever the case may be. But then I could keep track of it. And so even if I had to be working a certain day and I say, well, did you do your Khan Academy? Could I have them do it for math? And they would say, oh yeah, I did it. And I could log in quickly and say, are you sure? And, ask them a few other questions. So anyway, here we have all your courses. So you can do that, the test prep, the LSAT, MCAT, if you have some older students or kids of your own, your AP. I send kids a lot of times to Khan Academy when they come in because I don't do high school math. That is one thing that is my area of weakness, and I don't ever think I'm going to be putting it as an area of growth for myself. So, if I have a kid that has pre-calculus questions, if they haven't already used Khan, and don't assume that all your kids have. I've had juniors and seniors that I have said, well, have you checked out Khan Academy? And they say, what's that? I say, well, here, let me show you. And we'll have them log in and sign up for it and say, I never knew this existed. Yeah, and it's real easy. So again, I say, so you can log in with your Google account and all of that and see. So I'll let you guys play with that. But don't assume that your students know about Khan Academy, especially your middle and high schools. They may not know it. And, you can learn almost anything from Khan. MIT OpenCourseWare. So especially for your gifted and talented kids, you may want to consider pointing them in this right direction. One, I do a library science class for my juniors and seniors. It's an elective. And part of that is they earn digital badges. So it's more self-sufficient work that they do. And one of the badges that I have is doing an online course. So they can choose from MIT or for some of the other edX course, which I'll show you in a second. And they could find a course and they could do that. So just if you want to show the most visited courses, these are the most. So I don't have the time to teach them Introduction to Computer Science and Programming. I don't have the expertise, but then you can go and you can see an actual course taught through MIT or one of MIT providers, and you can see what that's about. Here's some highlights they do for K-12, so you could look for those. Subject areas more. There's some intro for teachers. So again, like I said, all these OERs have resources if you're looking for more information, or feel free to contact me and I can point you in the right direction. Another big one, which MIT does work with as well and is a part of, but also Harvard, Berkeley, University of Texas System, Hong Kong, other ones as well, is edX. And this is where I had a student who last year, she wanted her badge and she did it in cooking and chemistry. And she actually videotaped herself doing some of the lessons at home and things like that. So it was really interesting. And she loved it. And got me thinking like, wow, that would be a really cool course. It was a science course, but it'd be something that has a little bit more. So again, most of these are all self-paced, and you can see with these. So for instance, if you wanted to do the Chemistry of Life, the verified ones, you can look, it'll tell you how long it is, how many hours per week you're expected. Again, these are free. However, you can add a verified certificate for $49. So for those people that are looking into micro credentials and things like that, or your teachers are as well, could be interested in this. I'd be curious to see is at some point if we were able to get the micro credentials or verified certificate, if we could use that for professional development for our teachers and things like that. So again, Kyoto University, universities from all over the world for edX. Academic Earth, if you haven't heard of that one, that is another one. It was launched back in 2009. And again, the opportunity for collection of online courses. So you can go through and we can do graduate certificates, all those different types of things you can look at. So if I just wanted to say, I just want a certificate and I wanted an education and teaching, let's see what comes up. Child development. We don't do that one. So National Archives is another one where you can get a bunch of resources to supplement your education. So they have all types of things, research their records, visit us. Again, they will have webinars from time to time that you can see. There's your educational resources. So teaching with primary documents. There's a Docs Teach Twitter, which I recommend doing as well. You can do that. So there's your professional development workshops, things with that. There's teaching with records of Congress, civic education, National History Day for those that are involved in that. So National Archives has all kinds of useful resources there as well. All right, whoops. Coming back. Sorry about that. There. Well, let's go down. You hit the wrong thing. I really should learn to use my mouse instead. There we go. Smithsonian Learning Lab, if you're not familiar with this, I've just kind of been getting into it in the past year or so. They have tons of webinars as well. You can do all kinds of resources. So you can create things, again, free account. I will say that last year when the government shut down, the Smithsonian Learning Lab and the archives are sometimes shut down, the websites are, just so you know. But you can go, here's images that you can grab, videos you can grab. So insert those into your slideshows that you're sharing with your students, so on and so forth. So lots of different things. You can browse all the collections, 5,139 Learning Lab collections that you can find. Much better than what I can do on my own. Close that out. Read, Write, Think. If you're an ELA teacher, I'm sure you've probably used this in the past, but just in case you haven't or you need a little reminder, they have all kinds of resources that you can use. I used to love using their interactive tools that they would have. So your student interactives. So when they were doing all different levels, but I would use writing poetry for my middle schoolers when I did that. The hero's journey, which I have a senior teacher, English teacher who uses, does a hero's journey to remember about that. The mystery cube for writing. So different things that you can do by that. And you do need a Flash player to use those kind of things, but easy enough. So Read, Write, Think, great reminder to use that for those. And then here are some other OER collections that I just wanted to point out. So if you go to, and I'll go there in just a second, the Go Open, which was started by the Office of Educational Technology, by the department within the Department of Education. And they had several states and districts that signed on to be Go Open districts. Kentucky is not one of them yet, but I will say yet. But Connecticut, Georgia, Indiana, Utah, and Virginia are just some of the states. And I also have Joyce Valenza's collection. But just to kind of give you an example, this is Connecticut's Go Open. And so you have your open resources. So these are things that they've already collected. And again, they're collecting it for their state based on their standards and their acceptance. So you can see that. Digital instructional materials. Just as total side note, these are e-learning activities. So for some of our districts that do e-learning in the state of Kentucky, you may want to kind of look at those as some things. They actually had a Go Open Summit in January of this school year, or this calendar year too. You could go and you can look. So if you click on that, you can go and see different presentations. And I kind of perused that ahead of time, but you can see all of those resources. So that was Indiana's. Utah has a really nice website. These are all their collections they have. And granted, they're basing it on their third grade science for the state of Utah, but it doesn't mean that we can't go and borrow that information. But you just have to know that it fits with your curriculum. Georgia as well. Now, also Georgia has a virtual learning school and program. So you may get into some of these things and these courses, and not everything may be available. But you can kind of see, you can have lots of things are available and to be used. Joyce Valenza's collection of OER. So there's her Amazon Inspire. Oh, PBS Learning Media. I should have put that one in there as well. That I can't believe I forgot to put that one. There's another open textbook library as well. New York has a great one. There's Smithsonian. Project Gutenberg. If you're not familiar with Project Gutenberg, you need to be. Free ebooks. A lot of classics are there as well. So take a time. Didn't want to put everything because there's already people. Why reinvent the wheel if I can give you? So if you're looking for more resources, that would be the place to go for that. So now it's time to curate resources for your school or district. So how are you going to do that? One, you could use your school website. We have School Point for ours. I don't like it. I've learned to live with it and deal in it, but I don't really like it too much, but that's okay. Google Sites, which is much more flexible and easy to embed things and go on and so forth. Symbaloo, which I just wanted to give you an example of a Symbaloo. And this is Shannon McClintock Miller's Open Educational Resources. So this is her Symbaloo. I know a lot of librarians use that, especially for your primary kids. And you can go in and you can have those set as your home page, and they can only use those websites as well. So Symbaloo is an option. And Google Keep, which if you're interested in Google Keep, I will be presenting this afternoon. I think it's around 2:30 in the general sessions if you're interested in learning more about that. And then, of course, Follow Destiny. So I know the majority of our librarians in the state have Follow Destiny. And so that's what I was kind of focusing on because that's what I have. So within Follow Destiny, there is an OER search function in Destiny Discover. So if you're not utilizing Destiny Discover as your main searching tool for your catalog, for your students and for your staff, I would highly recommend transitioning to that. Destiny Quest was supposed to be non-functional at some point this school year. It still was working last time I checked a few weeks ago, but it's not being updated and things like that. So it could just go away in an instant. So I would switch to Destiny Discover, which I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. You can create your own collections in Destiny, or you can use ones that are already there in public. So I have my collection here, and I'm going to come back to this in just a second. I'm just going to show you the screenshots first, and then we'll do it live and in person. So when you go and searching your catalog for OER, this is Destiny Discover, and you're just going to go up to the search bar. And then when you click on it, you get your books, collections, databases, and you have OER. So these are things that they've already put together. So, and then you have collections, which we'll get to in a second. So let me go back and I'll just show you mine. So this is just the public entry into my catalog. If you're wondering how to get there, here you have Destiny. Okay, that's your traditional. You just go to Destiny Discover on the left side, and it's going to take you here. Okay, I'm not logged in or anything, but if I wanted to say Native Americans, and search, here we have books that I may have. There are collections that might be available. Okay, not necessarily mine. Databases, if I have my databases linked, which I do not right now, and then open educational resources. So it'll give you a little bit of an idea what it is, what's the format, the publisher, and if we want to open it, it'll open it up in another window. Okay, so this one is just a PDF, 10 pages on American Indian perspectives on Thanksgiving for teachers in grades 4 to 8. Okay, so you can go through and you can find all of those. All right. Now, if you want to create your own collections, I will show you that. So on the left-hand side before, went to Destiny to Discover, and you're into collections, okay? Now, when you search, notice here I'm logged in. If I'm logged in, I can create collections here with this button in the bottom right. You can view public or district collections, but you cannot create unless you are logged in and you have those rights, okay? So let me scroll out of that and go back to my Destiny Discover. And I'm going to log in quickly so I can see it. And I need to log in as admin just so I can show you all the different rights and things. Okay, so just real quick, I'm just going to go to setup just to make sure. So when you have your collections policies, this is what you can see. You can visit, administrators can do all, and I can go down to here, my students, and they can make collections and they can make visible. I just did it to our site only, okay? But I have my faculty able to do everything, but they can view those. They just can't create only, they can only create for our own school. I didn't want them to have all those. Didn't realize you have all these roles, did you? Your display options, you can look, you can do things there. Educational standards, if you want to select those. So I can there. Okay. Title maintenance, there's job manager. Okay. I just wanted to go back. We'll close that real quick. Yes. All right. So collections. Going to collections. Now I'm hoping that they get this a little bit fixed. They're supposed to be doing an upgrade to 16.0, I believe, or 16.5. And I'm hoping because I want to be able to create my dashboard and put my collections. So notice there's public, there's featured, and then there's private. Private are the ones that you created. So these are ones that I've created for my library. So we click on You Matter. So all I've started to do is looking at books in my library that fall under the category of mental illness that are YA fiction titles. And then I can also add websites and things like that. I can change how it looks. So this one has a little bit more. This one is just the graphic and the title, but it also tells you what it is, what resource it is. But if I want to add another resource, I can click there. I can have the URL. I can upload a file. I can upload a note, or type a note, I should say. I can add another collection as part of it. I can do a playlist, and I can import something, another resource list. So for those of you that have all these resource lists in the traditional catalog, those will not go to waste. So if I wanted to include my Me Too books, those books dealing with the Me Too movement or sexual and harassment or assault, abuse, those things, I could add those if I think it qualifies under mental illness as well. So that's how easy it is to add one. And you can go through. I can edit it at any time. I can change the position. I can move it to a different one. I can copy it to another collection and so on and so forth. If I go back to collections homepage and I go to the public, I can search the public. So, okay, so here's social emotional learning. Big topic, right? We're all supposed to be doing that. There's 228 items. I can look and I might say, you know what? I'm going to go down and I'm going to find a book that I think might be more applicable to the older kids, maybe not. So if we say this one, I can click and I can copy it to one of mine, other ones as well. Now, I've made the decision in my library just to focus on books and resources available. But we can kind of go from there. Sorry, I just got distracted by a call on myself. So hopefully that wasn't something that I'm doing wrong. Anyway, so we'll go back to here. So again, I really think the collections is a powerful tool for your library, and you can promote those. So if I go back, if I go back to my promotion of these and say I have one of these, I can share these right here. If you go up here, you have your share button. You can send a link. You can add different people. I can change it. Anyone with a link can view. So I could copy that and I could share that out with on social media. So kind of like how Melissa Gardner, Dr. Gardner was talking about showcasing different things on Hootsuite and TweetDeck for your social media. You could showcase different collections that you might have or send it to your teachers when it comes to President's Day and things. There are lots of public collections as well that you can adapt. Shannon McClintock Miller, who was working with Follett for a year, has all types of different things. And if I saw all my collections, I can filter it. So you could filter it by your grade level. So I'm in a high school, so I may only want to look at things that are listed as 7, 8, 9. And I can say, oh, we're going to be doing podcasts. Let's do podcasts. Or back to school, or, that Bob Ross, I think, the art guy. I can do that. So here I have my YA. I can do that. And I can copy this too. So I could copy collection and I can say, you know what, I'm going to put it, anyone in my district can see and copy this collection. And then I will save it. Now, when I go to collections, say private, it went from 8 to 9. So I can, if I'm limiting what my students can see. All right, so let me go back. So moving forward, because I think I'm running out of time. So first of all, please take a minute to check out the Go Movement, the Go Open initiative by the Office of Educational Technology, which until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know we had an Office of Educational Technology at the Department of Education in our federal government, but we do. And you can look at their resources. If you want to be a Go Open district, you can do their launch packet and find information. That's where I went here, the Go Open states. So I can look and I can see what other states, because again, why reinvent the wheel if there are other states around us? So not all of these have links to their states, but the ones that do, you can see very quickly. So that would be my first recommendation. The second one is, once you go there, there is a Go Open goal tracker that you can kind of use to look at that. So phase one, as far as, what do you have for your current instructional materials in your district? Who's responsible for it? What are you having a cycle? What resources do you have available? And phase two, who are going to be the members of this? And then phase three. And as school librarians, you need to be a part of those types of initiatives. If you're doing it at a school or district level, you need to lead from the library, because this is what you do. Curation is what you do, right? So then the other thing is to follow the Go Open hashtag. If I can keep clicking the wrong thing here, the Go Open hashtag on Twitter. So Twitter is a powerful tool. So we can go and we can look at Go Open. And so there is actually a regional summit on Friday in Virginia. If anybody is here from Virginia or look close. So, and I put that up there. So there's a free Go Open regional summit in Aberdeen, Virginia, sorry. So you can find some information there if you're interested in that. There's also a Future Ready webinar if you're part of the Future Ready movement that was archived from last May 2007, or 2 years ago, 2017, that you can look, still applicable. And then getting started with open resources, a recorded webinar by the Department of Education that was I believe it was December of 2018 that you can get to. So thank you to everybody who made and released, who did everything possible. My slide template, what I used was by Slides Carnival, which is another, I consider it an open educational resource tool because you can get some really creative slides. If you haven't used Slide Carnivals, I'd highly recommend it. Just a quick glance so you can see. You can find all different kinds, and it is for PowerPoint or for Google Slides. You just have to make a copy for Google Slides. So you can use that as well. And if there's any questions, you can find me at litchick_KY. And yes, lit is for literature, as in AP literature. I have to remind my teenage children that all the time. Or my school email, shannon.bosley@kenton.kyschools.us. So I have been off the screen for that. So I'm not sure if there are any questions. Did we have any questions, Heidi? I'm not sure on my time or anything else. I probably went over.
Great. And you're lit chick. That was awesome. My mind is blown. Totally blown. Chajkowski has said a couple of times, I'm so glad this is being recorded so that I can get back and watch it. I dropped the link to Shannon's presentation in the chat and also on Twitter because there are a lot of links that I for sure want to go back and look at. Karrie did have a question, and she was asking, would you recommend the Smithsonian site for younger kids, or do you consider that more like a middle and high school?
I have not looked at it from the perspective. Am I unmuted? Okay. I have not looked at it from the perspective of using it with younger kids, just because I've been in the high school lately. But I haven't seen anything that would be questionable. I would probably say if you're looking at old photos, like if they're studying war and things like that, you might get into some graphic things. But I haven't come across anything that I would find questionable for younger students. It's just a matter of what you're looking for and appropriateness.
Did anybody have any questions about Destiny? I think that you were using some really cool strategies for that. I'm so glad you showed how you did some of those things so that people can go back. I'm just saying, Rachel Burgeon saying, I love OER collections. I didn't know about those. James says, awesome work. Not seeing. And that you're lit. Lit chick. That's gonna
As in literature.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
A student gave me that name years ago. And
awesome.
we were just talking books. Oh, you should be lit chick because you know books, Mrs. Bosley. Okay. Well, fast forward 2019, 10 years later, after I put it as my Twitter handle, and it means something entirely different.
And you have your own Bitmoji.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Great. Well, I guess I will go ahead and start talking about powering up your reading culture. So I'm going to share my screen. You're going to get that like crazy poll in just a second. As soon as I do that. All right. Yep.
Let's stop sharing. There we go.
All right. So I am going to be sharing my screen. Sorry for the vertigo. And pulling up my presentation. Hopefully that will pop up here. Okay. All right, I'm not sure how fast it's moving for you all, but it's a little bit of a delay for me on my second screen. Okay, so if you would like a copy of my slide deck, you can find that at bit.ly/Heidi Nelt Readers, and that will get you to the slide deck powering up your reading culture. So that's bit.ly/Heidi Nelt Readers. And I have that a couple more times throughout the presentation just in case you miss it. So basically, as I was thinking of this presentation and how to organize this for talking about reading, I started thinking more about lessons that I think I've received from business books that I've read. So 3 of those books that I'm going to kind of talk about is Start With Why, Build Your Tribe, and Encourage Your Inner Drive. And if you have that slide deck open, if you click on those, that will take you out to the to the actual books on Amazon just so that they're linked there. It just goes right, it should go right out to that. So if we start with Why by Simon Sinek, in his book, he says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do that. And this is so important for when we're trying to develop a reading culture, because the kids don't really buy into like the trinkets necessarily, or just like the reading incentive. They buy into why you're doing it and the excitement that comes with it. So we want to think about, why do we read? We read to be taken to another place, kind of like that magical carpet for us. We read to engage with other people. We read to learn things that we're really excited about. And sometimes we read because our teacher tells us to. And unfortunately, as we get older, it becomes more and more because our teacher told us to read. So how do we keep that love of reading alive for our readers? So one of the things that we have to do is, I think somebody might mute, maybe Shannon, I'm not sure. I might have to pull that up and try to mute. Okay, so one thing we might consider doing to help create a shared experience and to generate some excitement is we might start with a one book, one school. And I really love the one book, one school. This is one of the favorite things that I started at Johnson a couple years back, and they're still doing it, which I'm so grateful for. And they're actually expanding it out to the district this year, which is even better. And there's lots of different ways to do one book, one school. Like some schools make everybody get a copy of the book and they take it home and they do homework and that kind of thing. But for my why for doing one book, one school is I wanted kids to be in a community, and I wanted them just to enjoy a story. And I think that the best way to do that sometimes is through a read aloud experience. And so that's how we did it. We did a read aloud with teachers. Every teacher got a copy of the book. Actually, every adult in the building got a copy of the book and read along. And there was a calendar, and there was no homework or expected work, just the love of the story. And that was the why for that. I just wanted the kids to love the story. It also provided kids with a common experience. And this was another really big, important factor for me, because I wanted kids to be able to go home and sit at dinner with their family or be in the car and be able to talk to their siblings about the same thing. I mean, so often throughout the day, your day is so different, especially if you have a fifth grader and a kindergartner. But if you get in the car and they can talk about this one thing together and be excited about it, it really brings a kind of excitement to the family and a love of that story to the family. And I had some parents say, like, we had to go buy the book because they wouldn't stop talking about it and we had no idea what they were talking about. So I just love that kind of sense of really familial love that starts to happen with one book, one school in this way. The other thing that I really appreciate about one book, one school in this aspect is that it increases conversations around shared positive reading experiences. So what we can see happen is, you know, if your custodians and your cafeteria staff are reading the book, then they can stop and talk to any student in the building about that book, which is kind of cool. It gives everybody in the building one point of contact for something that they can all approach another person about and talk to them about. You can also have conversations as a teacher. As years go by, you can say, you know, remember last year when we read because when Dixie and this happened. So it becomes kind of a touchstone text for our teachers to refer back to and provide common examples for every student in the class. And I really love that. It also provides valuable exposure to high quality literature and reflection on text. One thing that we did a lot of is we would give questions over the morning announcements, and then students would answer the questions with evidence from the text, and we would read those answers. So everybody got to hear daily what high quality answers that included text evidence sounded like. And this actually helped with their learning process and what they brought to the classroom, because they were hearing every day high quality examples and high quality literature. And, you know, it also exposes younger kids to more in-depth reading experiences through a chapter read aloud. So another shared experience that I think really does a great job of building community and a love of reading is the Global Read Aloud. And with this, you can connect with others around the world. There's a Facebook group and a blog to follow. You can check it out at theglobalreadaloud.com. Let's see if I can get out to that link. My link didn't work. Yep, I thought I had a link to the Global Read Aloud on that, but I guess I didn't. So the Global Read Aloud is put on by Pernille Rip, and she also has a book, which I'm totally blanking out on the name right now. I'm looking it up. Carrie's looking it up for me. And so there's a whole list of books, and you can connect with other people. Now, we didn't do this actually when I was in the library, but Marie Zimmerman, who's a librarian at Johnson, now started it a couple years ago, and classes connect with other classrooms from all over the world. And they were really excited about sharing those stories. Passionate Readers is the name of that book. So that would be another way to kind of create a shared experience around reading and generate just a straight love for reading as far as how that why comes into play. My next big lesson, I think, comes from Seth Godin's Tribes. And when we're building a reading culture, I think it's important to consider this quote from him. A group needs only two things to be a tribe: a shared interest and a way to communicate. So if we pull together our students for a shared interest, who have a shared interest in reading, and provide them with an outlet, we can really grow that love of reading. So as I look at that, ways to communicate, you could use a class or group in your school's LMS. So for example, you might use Google Classroom, or you might start like a Schoology group. We use Schoology, and have students share the books that they're reading. They could share videos, they could share discussion. It would just be a place for them to sort of meet digitally. You might also share book talks or trailers. So you could share those on the morning announcements or through shelf talkers and QR codes even. And you might start book clubs. I know a lot of people do those. You could do like a lunch book club, or do an after school or before school book club and invite teachers and community members to join in. And then you can make use of social media with hashtags. So you might have your own school hashtag. I know Jason Gay at our Highlands High School started the FT Reads hashtag, and he will tweet to that. And he even got our mayor to make a like citywide day of reading, FT Reads. And so he started like kind of a movement with that, which is sort of cool. So that's something else to think about, is to bring the whole community in and involve your public library and your city council. So some of the things that might help are, I have a website that I put together, FT Reads, and I am not having luck with my links today. Get back, see if I can. Okay, so FT Reads is kind of based off of, shout out to Jason there. And this is really for the elementary, because he has one for the high school. But for our elementary kids and teachers, I wanted to make sure that I had a resource that would help them create book trailers, book reviews, and book talks. So if you check out this link, you could, for example, if we go to the book trailers, it talks about like what a book trailer is. What do student created book trailers look like? What do professional book trailers look like? And then it gives some directions. So here's like how you might make one in iMovie, with brainstorming guides and storyboarding, and then like how to get your images and how to put it together. There's also a gallery, which I have not completed. And then under for teachers, there's different resources that teachers might use when they are helping students make book trailers. Under book reviews, that gives another kind of just an example of what book reviews are and where you might find them, and how you can write them. And then we have examples for how to do that if you're K-1 student. Here's some writing samples from our first graders. And this is like the writing they did, and the writing that they posted then to Destiny for reviews. And then I have one for 3rd through 5th graders. And we have the just example of how to do a book review for older kids, where you might find kind of more mature book reviews and where you can share them. And then again, I have like a for teachers section with example sites where they can go out and find examples of high quality book reviews to share with their students. The other one is book talks. And with book talks, we just have another, what is a book talk? How do we make it? What do they sound like? And if you were going to make them digital, we have different things that you could consider creating when you do your book talks. So we just have a number of different resources out here that would help you if you wanted to share those with your students or get ideas. And then students can create book talks or book trailers or book reviews, and you can post those and share those and provide students with a communication outlet. So I think that's just like a resource that you might consider using. So another thing you might do is like we have Schoology, so you might use Schoology and create a group where you could share updates, discussion topics, or you might use something like Instagram. So I'm going to shout out to some people you want to follow on Instagram: Eminence Ed Hub, Lassiter Library, and FDHS, that's Frederick Douglass High School Library. That's Kelly Reno. They are great Instagram sharers. That's even a word. And I just think if you follow them, you can get a good idea of how they're building a community of readers. Lassiter Library does a really good job of using the Insta story to connect with readers and share an excitement and a love for books. And they've got a lot of kids that'll follow and love their stories. And I saw James mention that he saw some graduates that were still loving things that they were posting on the Ed Hub. So, it's a good idea to follow those people and see how they're promoting reading and a love of reading. Okay, so one thing you might want to make use of is the Insta story, the Instagram story. If you're a middle or high school librarian and you have an Instagram account, you can tap into that sort of influencer culture. Our students have made it like loud and clear that they use Instagram to communicate, and that's pretty much it. So apparently Snapchat is out, and obviously Facebook has been out for a while and they're not gravitating towards Twitter. They use Instagram. So if you set up an Insta story and provide a way to share stories, you might create kind of like book snaps. So what you could do is snap an image of a book, or you could snap pictures of people engaged in reading activities. You can annotate with the little pen icon up here at the top. And then if you click the little thing that looks like a smiley face kind of Post-it note, you'll get more things that you can do to annotate. You can add a mention. So, students could mention your Instagram account. You could add hashtags. So if you have a reading hashtag that you love, you could add music that goes along with the theme of the story, and polls if you wanted to. So you can make it really engaging for your consumers, and then share your message and share that to your story. So if students are tagging you in your library and Instagram messages, you could re-share those and just broaden out their influence and share what they're loving about reading. So that's kind of a cool way to just engage and share that love of reading, if we're thinking back to the why, for why we do things. And of course, giving your tribe their voice. So I already kind of talked about resources for sharing with book trailers, book talks, and book reviews. So I'm not going to go back through that again. But another site that I have that you could check out is on my website. I have a reading page. Let's see if that'll open it up. And so this is just some digital reading strategies in general, and I'm working on adding things to this. So, I have digital tools to help build a culture of reading here, up here at the top. I have just links to resources that you might want to use. Down here at the bottom, there's some articles. And then I also have information about book snaps, which is kind of what I was talking about with Instagram. And these are the book snap was kind of created by Tara Martin, who used Snapchat to kind of and the Bitmoji to share her love of reading. So there's a link to her blog post. You can kind of pop out here real quick and just show you what I'm talking about if you've never heard of it. And she has all kinds of different things that you can use for book snaps. And well, they're not loading very fast, but she's used Seesaw. She's used Snapchat, of course. You could just do markups and things like Google Slides. So it doesn't have to be Snapchat, but they're all kind of book snaps with emojis and just reactions. So those are just fun ways to share that love and excitement of reading. And then I have a couple examples here. Here's one for how to do it with clips that you could watch, where this was actually kind of designed by one of our students who didn't feel like the book snap was enough. She wanted more. So she used clips and did a voiceover and talked about the key details and added animations and things like that. And then there's also, I have a link to the Instagram video, but I'm not going to play those right now. So those are some other examples that you might look at if you're just trying to give your tribe a voice and encourage them to use social media or use a hashtag and tag things. Okay, the last kind of big main point is when you're developing a reading culture is I think it's important to talk about drive and internal drive. A lot of the research shows that as kids get older, they lose their innate love of reading. We see you've all seen those horrifying graphs where it just plummets off a cliff and kids quit reading. So if I think about Dan Pink's drive, he says we have 3 innate psychological needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And when those needs are satisfied, we're motivated, productive, and happy. And I think that can be related to reading. So with competence, autonomy, and relatedness, they need to feel like they can master the reading. They need to feel like they have control over the reading, and they need to feel like there's a purpose. So when we look at those and consider those 3 things, and intrinsic motivation for mastery, students need to feel successful. So if they are constantly being asked to read things that are above their level without support, that might be challenging. Maybe if it's a book they really want, we can turn over an audiobook to them or engage in a read aloud with them. For autonomy, we need to feel as though we have control over our choices. And purpose, we need to understand the purpose for doing it, and rewards. Dan Pink often talks about how external rewards often reduce the internal drive to want to read. So how does that work? Well, the book whisperer, if I just connect to her real quick, she really talks about providing a rich library. So with that rich library, you want to have a lot of different levels of text so kids can feel successful. So they can find something in that library that is their speed, their passion, their interest. And so that's obviously a rich library in our school libraries, but also providing them with classroom libraries that are rich in text, or using digital tools for that, like Epic and all those OER resources that Shannon just shared. We also want to model reading. So as educators, we can share what we are reading with our students. And also you want to take some time to get to know their interests so that you can recommend good books to them. And Donna Lynn Miller in the Book Whisperer talks a lot about that. That's really a key strategy there. And then the last motivator here, if we're thinking about Dan Pink, is we really want to think about ditching all the trinkets. A lot of times if you're doing accelerated reader, you might be giving prizes. And the Book Whisperer, Donna Lynn Miller, talks about how that's not really a good way to engage readers. You would want to celebrate reading with reading. You might give book rewards instead of, bubbles or something, or candy. So kids are more interested in spending time with you, maybe than they are something that's going to break. So think about that, and think about how you might just have students engage in intrinsic motivation, and how you might inspire intrinsic motivation through sharing your why, and through offering them lots of options. So one way that we found helps students is through the 40 book challenge. Consider using the 40 book challenge. I do have kind of a resource for that linked. Obviously I don't. So see if I can pull that up real quick. This is how I sort of started the 40 book challenge, and they're still doing this at Johnson. But you might think about using, in her book, she talks about using a digital notebook or reader's notebook. And so I have a digital version, and you can grab a copy of that by clicking here. It'll force the copy. But the digital notebook, what it does is it provides you with directions, and then it has the genre notes that students can take. And you could use Google Classroom and just assign this through Google Classroom, or like we use Schoology, so we would assign it through Schoology and either PowerPoint or Google. And then you can check in. And if you're going to require a genre requirement for students, you would have this slide where you write down what the requirement is, and then they would keep track of the number that they've read. And then the books read section is where they keep track, a running track of what they're reading, and if they completed it or if they ditched it. And as you go through this, they also have an area on slide 12 of books that they want to read. And then there's a status of the class section where they might write down what other people are reading. And then here, the teacher would kind of customize a letter to the students about reading. And then students would get a chance to write back to the teacher, and they would just copy that slide as often as they needed. And the teacher and the student can have kind of like a dialogue journal about their reading. So those are all kind of Donald Miller inspired strategies. And, there's even some ideas here for what they can do for book projects. And if you're using a digital tool like Google Slides or PowerPoint, students can embed their projects directly into those slides and keep kind of a nice holistic digital journal about what they're doing. So those are just some ideas for creating that mastery, autonomy, and purpose, so that students can cultivate a love of reading by actually reading. And I love the 40 book challenge. Okay, so I did put some resources on here for you all to check out. We've got Donald Miller's Book Whisperer. So I would highly recommend starting with that book if you're trying to establish, a love of reading for your students. There's also Pernell Rip's site. I really like this article. This would be something good to send to your administrators. This is her site, but I found this one and I just love this. Here she talks about what administrators can do to promote a reading culture. And it's just really practical stuff, but I like that it's written to administrators, about believing in choice for all and promoting meaningful work and buying books. You've got to have a library budget if you're going to have all the books that you need for students. I also love that she talks about having a full-time librarian, like fight for that. Celebrate the books that are read, not the number of minutes logged. I think that's a great statement there. And because you know what? Some kids are going to read faster, some kids will read slower. But every time a student finishes a book, that's a great thing for them. Protect the read aloud, build time into your teacher's day at all grade levels to read aloud to students. Promote independent reading time, hire teachers that love reading, and, level the books, not the children. And so these are just really, I think, down to earth strategies that administrators can do. And, I think she gives Like it's just very straight talking, and that would be something good to send right now to your administrator. Okay, the other ones that I really like are the Nerdy Book Club. Donna Lynn Miller does write for this too. So Nerdy Book Club is a great place to find books that you'll want to read and see what people are sharing. And Mr. She Reads is another one kind of like that, where you can see things from authors and books that are coming out and book trailers and that kind of stuff. So those are some of my favorite resources for you to check out. So that is pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions or need to see anything else in more depth? Stop sharing my screen and go back live. James is mentioning that the 40 book challenge worked well for them. They had 7,000 books read. That's amazing. That's really cool. All right. Well, we have a few more minutes. So we were going to kind of do like a roundtable discussion. So I don't know if Shannon and Melissa and Karrie are all here. Karrie's here, obviously, but I don't know. She's right next to me. I'm not sure if Shannon and Melissa are still here. So we were going to just kind of talk through a little bit about what we're planning for summer and for next year. And
so I'm heading to the beach in a little bit, sorry.
Shannon's
my lunch break will be in the water.
All right. So anybody have any goals, learning goals, or kind of theme goals for next year that you guys would talk about?
I missed one of my slides. For my library next year, I'm going beyond creating the logo. Next year, we're thinking about the theme. So I'm gonna start looking at kind of like the slogan that goes along with my library, and new hashtag to promote things like that. So that's my new direction, and to come up with incentives for kids to start following us on Instagram and get more parents involved on Facebook and Twitter. So it's one of my focuses.
That's what. I'm really looking forward to getting some more project-based learning going, especially with my second graders this year. Towards the end of the year, I did some research-based projects, but I'm hoping to move forward to project-based learning with my second graders. I'm hoping to do a pet for the library and have the kids kind of convince me what we should get for our library, and do the research to back it up and hopefully present it on, and just work on building more center tools for my K1 so that when they come into second and third grade, they're ready to go with everything from the Ozobots to Dash and Dot and whatnot. So really want to work on building more maker centers and coming up with some tutorials for those little guys on how to use those tools that I can post on our new school library website that I've been working on. So yay. All right, 1, 2, 3.
I like the Dash and Dot and whatnot.
So James asked a question, and this would be good to get feedback from everybody. Is the 40 book challenge reasonable for middle and high school? I know for some it is, but for the majority. And he just adds, I'm very picky about books and devote time that I devote time to. Finishing 40 for me is a challenge. I will say that I tried to do it. Finishing 40 for me was a challenge too, because yeah, I just put them down or whatever. Like,
gets in the way.
yeah. What do you guys think?
I would say at the high school level, it is a challenge because their required reading is so much. If you did a whole calendar year and include the summer, I think it'd be more likely. I can remember my own daughter saying that once she graduated high school and now that she's just graduated college, it's like, oh, I can get back to reading now, like reading for what she wants, and instead of everybody else selecting it for her. So I see that as a challenge. Now, I have challenged my faculty and staff to do the 40 book challenge in the calendar year, just to promote more reading and sharing what they're reading with everybody. But as far as the students, I see that as difficult to do at the high school level, just because of the requirement of what they don't count those books as reading. And I will say I don't think it's a far stretch to say that most high school students do not read the assigned books cover to cover. I don't really think they do. So,
My own personal challenge for me this year is to read 100 books, and I'm only on 30. But I think it's just the mere thought of the length of the books that the middle school and high schoolers read, and the complexity is harder. So I just like for my kids to read, and our summer reading program this year is focused on the number of minutes read rather than the page numbers or the number of books, so that if a kid is a slower reader and it takes them longer to finish a book, that's fine, but they're spending the time reading and reading things that they enjoy, which for my age group, I think is more important.
Several years ago, I did a reading oh, I'm sorry, Karrie, you want to go ahead?
Good. Oh,
go ahead.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And now I've had a brain fart and I can't remember what I was going to say because we've been doing this. One of the things I really like to do is set up kid goals where they kind of set their own goal based on their own abilities. And that has really helped in the past, especially with your struggling readers who are, it's just not their thing. So getting them to read more than they have in the past, that's always my goal, regardless of what it is. So if they only finished 5 books last year, great, let's push for 10. If they've only finished 10 books this year, great, next, let's push for 20. Let the kids set their own goal. And then we're a leader in May school, so tracking their own lead measure there and holding themselves accountable is always really big for us. So hopefully that'll.
Yeah, so in the chat, people are saying that no rules, count everything. Graphic novels, picture books, wordless books. 40 is not the goal. James is saying 40 is not the goal, and Jill said yes, no rules, and encourage a variety of reading. I think Melissa said about page, kind of like page counts. I did with the older kids. I would say, if you have a chapter book and it's over 100 pages, count 2 books or something. If we're taking a number account. I think that helps, but I also think it's important to honor what the student's goal is. So one thing I did when we were doing the 40 book challenge is I would, if the student hit their goal, whether it was 5 books or 100 books, I would celebrate them in some way. And we made buttons. I know I said picture kids. It was like it was a button that they got for reaching their goal that they could add to their backpack. And then they were pretty jazzed about that. It was more of a reward for the goal. And then if they got 40 books, they got an autograph. I had kind of a bank of books that I kept signed by authors. They would get an author signed copy of a book. So they were really getting rewarded for two things: for hitting their personal goal, and no matter what it was, in the 40 book. And what I found was kids who originally said, like, I can only read 5 books. Like, they would hit that 5 book mark in October, and I'd give them a reward, and they'd be like, I think I can hit 40, and then they would keep trying. So that really helped with that intrinsic motivation for them. And they also knew that I was trying and failing, because they could, I kept my running list, and they were like, "You've been on 5 books for a long time, Miss Neltner." I'm like, "Yes, I have." So, just like being real with them, I think was helpful for developing that culture of it's okay because that's where you are. And I could see that really with high school is, count the textbook reading that they're doing, count the maybe articles that they're reading, or have them pick up picture books and say, it's okay if you read picture books or graphic novels. And if you want to go back to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like, you do it because it's reading.
And we also, instead of the trinkets at Woodville, we moved towards having our PTO actually, instead of spending the money on trinkets, turned around and gave every kid $5 to go shopping at the book fair. So I don't know if that's a possibility. If you could maybe, if you have that trinket account, if you could maybe move it in the other direction, because it benefits your library in more ways than one, and benefits the kids in more ways than one. So.
And Jill's talking in the chat about a language arts teacher who implemented the 40 book challenge and made it a priority to have dedicated reading time. And I think if you're a classroom teacher, that's probably really important to encourage that, is to offer that dedicated reading time. And she would have them incorporate that reading into their lessons. I mean, I think that's really smart because the standards are the same no matter what book you're reading. So you really could pick up any book and say, okay, today we're talking about character development, or today we're talking about idea development. Turn to page or chapter, whatever, in your book, or turn to where you're reading now, and complete this discussion activity or this graphic organizer that will help you practice those skills. So, I think teachers need to understand, like, they don't just have to read the books for reading them. They can incorporate all that into their class as well if they wanted to. And James is talking about how for theirs, they kept track on a Google form. And I did use the Google form approach too. I think it really helps to keep track of where kids are, and looking at daily totals. What? Chocolate frogs?
That's what I was just looking at. I want that.
Oh, the Harry Potter themed breakout. I'm moving to Eminence, you all. That's just, I want to do a Harry Potter themed breakout at our camp out. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I don't know if I missed any questions in there, but one of the other things we were talking about while we're talking about books is, are there any books that you guys are super excited to share? We have just a few more minutes left, but what books are you excited to share when the fall starts?
Oh.
We are getting ready to start the new year of KBA, and I'm waiting for the boxes to get here. But I'm really excited about the new Kentucky Bluegrass Award books this year. If you're not familiar with KBA, it's a really great program for different grade levels. And there's a K2, preschool, 3-5, middle school, and high school list. And it's phenomenal. But the book I'm most excited about on that list for the K2 is the What Do You Do With All That Poo? It has been the read aloud of all read alouds this year, and I absolutely adore it. My 5th graders loved it as much as my kindergartners did. So I can't wait to share that more. So yeah, that's my big one.
I would have to agree with Karrie, is reading all the KBA books and the new titles as they're released and things. I'm acting as a reader for the high school committee this year, so just trying to keep current with all of the new titles as they're released and what the appeal would be for those. And so I got to backtrack and get all the ones for this year's titles read, as well as the ones that would be for the upcoming school year. So lots of great titles as far as young adult books are concerned. They're constantly expanding, and a lot of things to be excited about. More representation, more diversity that you see, which is always positive. Their students want to see themselves in the books that you have on your shelves.
The 6 through 8 books are going to be great for book talks. So I'm really excited about getting the kids in here and talking about them. They're really good books.
Well, I guess it's about that time. Thank you for spending the morning with us. We will be back this afternoon. Let's see if I pull up the agenda this afternoon. I will be sharing at 12:55 about digital tools for writing, and I'm going to do a deep dive into like how you might use Google Slides for that. At 1:45, we have Melissa sharing tips and tricks for Google Drive. And I will be talking about how you might trick people into using computer science standards for the elementary level. I mean, you know, like just sneak it in there. And then for our 2:35 session, Shannon is going to be talking about Google Keep, and I will be talking about how we plan PBL here in our district and some strategies for implementation. So I hope that you all can hang out this afternoon and join us for those sessions. And make sure you engage in the chat, because it's just like one person talking to a screen, which is a little awkward. Yeah, so thanks for being here, and we'll see you next year.